Imagine waking up one day and everything you know is gone. Your government has collapsed. Your city is burning. The trade that brought food to your table has stopped. Writing itself, the ability to record and communicate, is disappearing. This isn't a hypothetical future. This actually happened around 1200 BCE in what historians call the Bronze Age collapse. In just 50 years, the ancient world's greatest civilizations vanished. Empires that had lasted 1,000 years simply ceased to exist. This is the story of how an entire world ended. To understand what was lost, picture the Mediterranean in 1250 BCE. This wasn't a primitive world. It was sophisticated, interconnected, and wealthy. In Greece, the Mycenaean kingdoms ruled from massive fortress palaces. Mycenae's walls were so enormous that later Greeks believed giants built them. Inside, scribes kept detailed records of everything from chariot inventory to perfume production using linear B script. Across the Aegean and Anatolia, the Hittite Empire was a superpower. From their capital at Hattusa, Hittite kings controlled vast territories. Their archives contained thousands of clay tablets, treaties with Egypt, diplomatic correspondence, military records. They'd mastered iron-working technology, giving them an edge over rivals. Along the coast of modern Syria and Lebanon, wealthy port cities thrived. Ugarit was perhaps the jewel of them all. Its harbor welcomed ships from Cyprus, Egypt, Greece, and Mesopotamia. The city's merchants traded timber, textiles, and precious purple dye. Scribes wrote in multiple languages and had even developed one of history's first alphabets. Egypt was in its new kingdom golden age. The pharaohs ruled an empire stretching from Nubia to Syria. Ramesses II had covered the land with monuments. Egypt seemed eternal. It had already existed for 2,000 years. What bound all these civilizations together was bronze itself. Bronze, an alloy of copper and tin, made the best weapons, tools, and trade goods. But here's the critical point. No single kingdom had both copper and tin. Copper came from Cyprus and the Sinai. Tin came from Afghanistan, possibly Britain. This forced cooperation and created extensive trade networks. The Uluburun shipwreck, discovered off Turkey in 1982, shows how interconnected this world was. This single merchant ship, which sank around 1300 BCE, carried cargo from 7 different cultures: Cypriot copper, Central Asian tin, African ebony, Syrian ivory, Baltic amber, Mesopotamian glass, and Greek pottery. One ship, 7 civilizations, one economy. This was globalization 3,000 years ago. But cracks were appearing. Around 1250 BCE, the climate shifted. Tree rings, pollen records, and sediment cores all show the same thing: severe drought. Rainfall decreased across the eastern Mediterranean. Rivers failed. Harvests declined. Hittite records from this period are desperate. One letter from a Hittite king to his Egyptian counterpart practically begs, "The matter of grain about which you wrote to me, grain in my land is finished." The Hittites, a great empire, are asking Egypt for emergency food aid. But Egypt has problems too. The Nile's annual flood, which determines Egypt's harvest, begins to fail. Even the breadbasket of the ancient world faces hunger. Archaeological evidence shows cities shrinking, rural populations declining, some settlements abandoned entirely. People are migrating, searching for food and water. Then come the earthquakes. The eastern Mediterranean sits on one of Earth's most seismically active zones. Around 1225 BCE, seismic activity spikes. Excavations across dozens of sites show destruction layers from earthquakes. At Troy, at Mycenae, across Anatolia and the Levant, buildings collapse and walls crumble. Civilizations have survived droughts before. They've rebuilt after earthquakes. But what they cannot survive is everything happening at once. Around 1200 BCE, the raids begin. Egyptian records call them the Sea Peoples, though that's a modern term. Ancient sources list various names: the Peliset, the Checker, the Shekelesh, the Denyen. Groups of warriors arriving by sea, speaking unknown languages. leaving destruction in their wake. Who were they? Modern scholars still debate this. Were they displaced populations from the Balkans or Anatolia, driven from their homes by drought and famine? Opportunistic raiders taking advantage of weakened kingdoms? Refugees created by the very collapse they seem to have caused? Probably all of these. Sea Peoples likely describes multiple groups with different origins, arriving over several decades. Some were warriors. Some were entire populations on the move, men, women, children with ox carts carrying their possessions. What's clear is that by 1200 BCE, the attacks are no longer isolated raids. They're massive, coordinated, and winning. Cities that had stood for centuries fall in weeks. Ugarit's final days are preserved in clay letters found in the palace archives. The king of Cyprus writes, "Enemy ships have been sighted at sea." The king of Ugarit responds desperately, "My father, the enemy ships are already here. They have set fire to my towns and have done very great damage in the country." Another letter from a Ugarit official, "The king is in the land of Hatti. All of our ships are in the land of Lucca. The city is in grave danger. The army is gone. The navy is elsewhere. Ugarit is defenseless." These letters were found still in their envelopes, never delivered. Because before they could be sent, Ugarit burned. Archaeological excavations reveal thick layers of ash, skeletons where they fell, treasure hastily buried and never recovered. Ugarit is never rebuilt. One of the ancient world's greatest cities simply ceases to exist. And Ugarit isn't alone. Up and down the Levantine coast, cities burn. Hazor, Megiddo, Lachish, Ashkelon, all destroyed or abandoned. In Cyprus, cities fall and the copper mines go silent. The Hittite Empire fragments and its capital Hattusa is abandoned around 1190 BCE. An empire that had lasted 5 centuries vanishes from history. In Greece, the Mycenaean palaces collapse. The linear B tablets stop being written. Literacy disappears from Greece and won't return for 400 years. The great palace centers, Mycenae, Tiryns, Pylos, are destroyed or abandoned. It's a domino effect on a civilizational scale. When coastal trading cities fall, trade networks break down. Without trade, bronze becomes scarce. Without bronze, armies can't be equipped. Without armies, kingdoms can't defend themselves. Without defense, more cities fall, creating more refugees, putting more pressure on surviving kingdoms. Each collapse makes the next one inevitable. But one kingdom stands firm: Egypt. Around 1177 BCE, Pharaoh Ramesses III faces the Sea Peoples at Egypt's northeastern frontier. The reliefs on his temple walls at Medinet Habu show 2 major battles, one on land, one at sea. The naval battle is possibly history's first large-scale sea engagement. Sea Peoples' ships attempt to enter the Nile Delta. Egyptian vessels meet them while archers positioned on the riverbanks rain arrows down. The enemy ships capsize, their crews drowning or captured. Egypt survives, but barely. The cost is enormous. The empire contracts. Later pharaohs grow weaker. Egypt's golden age is ending. Egypt's survival matters for one crucial reason: it preserves the record. We know about the Sea Peoples because Egypt survived to tell us. The Hittites, the Mycenaeans, Ugarit, they left no such records because their civilizations didn't survive. After the collapse, the Mediterranean enters a dark age lasting 3 centuries. Literacy disappears across much of the region. The Mycenaean Linear B script is forgotten. It won't be deciphered until 1952 CE. International trade collapses. The sophisticated networks connecting continents cease to exist. Artistic and technological achievements are lost. Populations decline dramatically. In Greece, by perhaps 75%. Villages are abandoned. Fields return to wilderness. The quality of pottery decreases. Monumental architecture stops. People live in smaller, simpler settlements, but not everywhere descends equally into darkness. Some Phoenician cities, Tyre, Sidon, Byblos, emerge as new powers. They develop the alphabet that will eventually evolve into our own. Athens, built on its defensible Acropolis, survives as a refuge. New peoples move into the vacuum. Aramaeans, Israelites, Phrygians. The Dark Age isn't uniform. It's a patchwork of destruction and survival, but everywhere the world is fundamentally different from before. So, what really caused the Bronze Age collapse? There's no single answer. It was a perfect storm. Climate change causing drought and famine, earthquakes damaging infrastructure, migrations and invasions, economic collapse as trade networks failed, and systems failure as interconnected kingdoms fell like dominoes. The Bronze Age world was a complex system, highly interconnected, specialized, efficient. This brought wealth and power, but it also created fragility. When multiple stresses hit simultaneously, the system couldn't adapt. The lesson? Even sophisticated civilizations that have endured for centuries can collapse quickly when multiple crises converge. Complexity and interconnection bring benefits, but also vulnerabilities. Today we live in our own interconnected world: global supply chains, climate change, mass migrations. The parallels are unsettling. Our systems are even more complex than anything in the Bronze Age, which means potentially more fragile. But the Bronze Age collapse also teaches us about resilience. Civilization didn't end. It transformed. The Phoenicians sailed to new horizons. The Greeks eventually emerged with new city-states. The alphabet was invented. From the ashes came the Iron Age, and eventually classical Greece and Rome. Collapse is not the end. It's a transformation. Terrible, traumatic, but survivable. The question for us is, can we recognize the warning signs before it's too late? Can we build systems resilient enough to weather our own perfect storm? The Bronze Age collapse destroyed a world, but it also left us a warning about the fragility of civilization. Whether we heed that warning remains to be seen. Bunu 10 dakika olacak şekilde güzel bir video yapsana, tarihi bir belgesel bu, unutma tarihi şeyler kullan.